In the outer regions of the Perseus Arm, where stars burned dim and cold, the Carthian Dominion fleet moved like a swarm of metallic predators. 43 warships. Each one a fortress of alloy and plasma cannons. Each one built for conquest. Admiral Zareth stood on the command platform of the Dominion flagship Iron Verdict, his crimson eyes reflecting the tactical display hovering in the air before him. A small blue planet rotated slowly on the holographic map. A primitive world by galactic standards. Barely spacefaring. Barely organized. Barely worth the effort. Yet here they were. Status report, Zareth said calmly. A thin officer adjusted the controls on his console. Planetary defenses minimal, Admiral. Orbital satellites destroyed. Surface forces disorganized. Their fleet attempted resistance but was neutralized within 11 minutes. A faint murmur of approval spread across the bridge. It had been an easy campaign. Too easy. Another officer spoke. Human communications indicate widespread panic. Multiple cities have already surrendered. Zareth folded his clawed hands behind his back. Of course they have. The Dominion had conquered hundreds of worlds. No species had ever truly resisted them. Not once. Prepare the invasion forces, Zareth ordered. By this time tomorrow, Earth will belong to the Dominion. The order was acknowledged instantly. Dropships were already moving into position. On Earth's surface, chaos reigned. Cities burned. Military bases fell silent. Human governments collapsed one by one as Dominion ground forces descended like thunder. Their soldiers were towering reptilian warriors wrapped in exoskeletal armor. Their weapons fired bolts of antimatter. Against them, human tanks and missiles were almost meaningless. At least, that was what the Dominion believed. Somewhere beneath the Pacific Ocean. Far below the waves, hidden beneath miles of reinforced titanium and classified secrecy, a facility waited. It had existed for decades. Unknown to the public. Unknown to most governments. Even unknown to the Dominion. Inside the dimly lit control room, alarms screamed. Red lights flashed across the walls. Commander Elias Ward stared at the screen in front of him, his face pale but determined. Orbital fleet destroyed, an officer reported. Ground defenses failing across every continent. Another officer spoke quietly. Estimated time until global occupation, 12 hours. The room fell silent. Everyone knew what that meant. Humanity had lost. Ward exhaled slowly. Then we're out of options. He turned toward a reinforced console at the center of the room. The console was older than the rest of the facility. Older than most of the staff. Older than modern humanity's understanding of the galaxy. A single symbol glowed faintly on its surface. An ancient triangular mark. No one knew where it came from. Only what it did. Ward placed his hand on the console. Prepare the beacon. Several officers froze. One of them spoke nervously. Commander, if we activate that signal? I know. Every species in the galaxy will hear it. Ward nodded. Exactly. Another officer whispered. That means them. The room went even quieter. Everyone knew the stories. The rumors passed between alien civilizations. The whispers shared across forgotten star systems. The beacon was not a distress call. It was something far worse. Ward looked around the room. Humanity has always survived by doing the impossible. He pressed the activation key. The console hummed. Energy surged through the facility. Deep beneath the ocean floor, an ancient transmitter awakened. And then, the signal was sent. Across the galaxy. Thousands of light years away, inside a drifting fortress made from the bones of dead stars, a signal arrived. It echoed through ancient systems that had slept for centuries. The message contained only 3 words. Help us. The fortress slowly came alive. Engines older than most civilizations began to stir. A massive shape moved in the darkness. A ship. No, a fleet. Across the galaxy, hidden in forgotten regions of space, more signals were received. And something began to move. Back at Earth. Admiral Zareth watched the battle unfold from orbit. Everything was proceeding exactly as predicted. Human resistance was collapsing rapidly. Several continents had already surrendered. The Dominion ground forces were unstoppable. An officer approached him. Admiral, long-range sensors detecting unusual energy emission from Earth's oceans. Zareth frowned. Explain. We believe the humans transmitted some kind of signal. Zareth chuckled. A distress signal? Possibly. The Admiral waved a dismissive claw. Let them cry for help. He looked at the tactical display again. No one is coming. But at that exact moment, deep space sensors began to flicker. Another officer turned suddenly. Admiral, detecting hyperspace distortions. Zareth looked up. How many ships? The officer hesitated. His voice became uneasy. Unknown. Clarify. Admiral, they're not showing up as ships. The tactical display changed. Dozens of massive gravitational anomalies appeared around the solar system. Each one larger than a moon. Each one tearing open space itself. Zareth's expression hardened. What is that? No one answered. Then space split open. The first object emerged from hyperspace. It was enormous, nearly the size of a small planet. Its surface was covered in black armor that looked grown rather than built. Then another appeared. Then another. And another. Within seconds the entire Dominion fleet was surrounded. Silence filled the bridge of the Iron Verdict. One officer whispered, Admiral, those aren't warships. Zareth stared at the monstrous shapes. What are they? No one on the bridge had an answer. But somewhere deep in the galaxy, ancient civilizations were already whispering the truth. The Dominion had not triggered a rescue. They had awakened something else. Something far older. Something far worse. And for the first time in centuries, the hunters of the galaxy had arrived. For several long seconds, no one aboard the Dominion flagship Iron Verdict spoke. The massive objects that had emerged from hyperspace simply hung there in the void, surrounding the Carthian fleet like silent giants. Admiral Zareth stared at the tactical display. 30, 40, 50 unknown vessels. Each one larger than any warship he had ever seen. And the sensors still couldn't fully analyze them. The ships were shaped unlike anything built by modern civilizations. They were jagged and organic, covered in layered black armor that seemed to absorb the light of nearby stars. One officer finally broke the silence. Admiral, we cannot identify their propulsion systems. Another voice followed. No visible weapon systems either. Zareth narrowed his eyes. Open communications. A transmission pulse was sent across the void. The Dominion had encountered unknown species before. The standard procedure was simple: demand surrender. The message echoed through space. This is Admiral Zareth of the Carthian Dominion. Identify yourselves immediately. Seconds passed. Then a reply came. But it wasn't a voice. It wasn't even language. It was a sound. A low, deep vibration that passed through every system on the ship like distant thunder. Several consoles flickered. One officer gripped his headset. Admiral, I can't translate it. Another whispered nervously. It's not communication. Before he could finish, something happened. One of the massive black vessels moved. Not slowly. Instantly. The enormous structure simply shifted across space, appearing directly beside a Dominion destroyer. The destroyer's crew barely had time to react. A ripple of energy expanded from the alien vessel. The Dominion ship folded in on itself like crushed metal. In 1 second it was gone. Completely erased. Shock spread across the bridge. Admiral. Zareth slammed his claw against the command console. All ships opened fire. 40 Dominion warships unleashed a storm of plasma cannons, antimatter torpedoes, and particle beams. The void between the fleets exploded with light. But when the energy cleared, the massive black ships were still there. Unharmed. Not a single scratch. A chilling realization spread through the Dominion command crew. Their weapons were useless. Then the unknown fleet attacked. Part 3, The Galaxy's True Predators. What followed was not a battle. It was an extermination. The black vessels moved through the Dominion fleet with terrifying speed. They did not fire beams. They did not launch missiles. Instead, space itself seemed to obey them. One Dominion cruiser suddenly twisted apart as gravity reversed around it. Another vanished into a collapsing sphere of darkness. Entire squadrons disappeared within seconds. Zareth watched in disbelief. "This is impossible," a tactical officer shouted. "We're losing ships faster than we can track." Another yelled. 20 ships destroyed. Then 30. Then 35. The once mighty Dominion fleet was collapsing. Panic spread through the bridge. For centuries the Carthian Dominion had ruled through fear. Now, they were the ones afraid. Zareth turned to his communications officer. "Send emergency beacon to Dominion High Command." The officer hesitated. "Admiral, what do we report?" Zareth stared at the monstrous fleet outside. His voice dropped to a whisper. "Tell them?" He swallowed. "We have encountered something worse than war." But the message would never be sent. Another black vessel moved. The flagship Iron Verdict trembled violently. Gravity spiked across the ship. Crew members were thrown across the bridge. Metal groaned. Systems failed. For the first time in his long military career, Admiral Zareth felt helpless. Then suddenly, everything stopped. The unknown fleet halted its attack. The remaining Dominion ships drifted silently through the wreckage of their destroyed fleet. 20 ships remained. Out of 43. Zareth looked up slowly. Why did they stop? The answer came moments later. A new signal appeared on every screen. It was directed toward Earth. Part 4: Humanity's Secret. Inside the underwater facility, Commander Elias Ward watched the events unfold on the tactical display. The unknown fleet had arrived exactly as expected, and they were doing exactly what the beacon had promised. Protecting Earth. An officer looked at Ward nervously. "Commander, what are those things?" Ward looked at the ancient symbol on the console. "Allies." The officer blinked. "Allies?" Ward nodded slowly. "Long ago, before humanity reached space, we were not alone." The room became silent. Ward continued. "Thousands of years ago, an ancient species visited Earth. They studied humanity. They watched our wars, our survival, our resilience. And they made a decision." Another officer whispered. "What kind of decision?" Ward answered calmly. "They chose us." No one spoke. Ward gestured toward the screen. The beacon wasn't a distress signal. It was a key. A key that calls our guardians. The officer stared at the massive ships on the display. "You mean those things are protecting us?" Ward nodded. "They've been watching humanity for thousands of years. Hidden beyond our galaxy. And they only respond to one signal. That one." On the screen the Black Fleet slowly moved. They formed a defensive ring around Earth. The remaining Dominion ships attempted to retreat. But space closed around them. They weren't escaping. Part 5: The Dominion's Last Mistake. Admiral Zareth stared at the unknown fleet in horror. Why aren't they finishing us? Then the answer appeared. A transmission. This time, it was language. A deep voice echoed through every Dominion ship. "You have violated a protected world." Zareth froze. "Protected?" The voice continued. "This planet is under the guardianship of the Sentinels. Your aggression has been recorded. Judgment has been passed." Zareth whispered. "What are the Sentinels?" The answer came coldly. "The protectors of species not yet ready to face the galaxy." Zareth realized the truth too late. Earth wasn't weak. Earth wasn't alone. Earth was guarded. And the Dominion had just attacked it. The voice delivered the final verdict. "You were warned." The Sentinels moved again. This time they did not stop. The remaining Dominion fleet vanished within seconds. No explosions. No debris. Just silence. The invasion of Earth had ended. Part 6: The Truth the Galaxy Feared. Days later, news of the battle spread across the galaxy. Every civilization heard the same report. The Dominion fleet had attacked Earth. And the Sentinels had responded. Ancient alien empires grew quiet. Because they remembered the legends. Stories older than most star systems. Stories about an unknown force that protected certain worlds. Worlds that would one day change the galaxy. Earth was one of them. Epilogue: Humanity's future. Weeks after the battle, the Sentinel fleet still remained in orbit around Earth. Their massive ships floated silently above the planet. Watching. Waiting. Inside the underwater facility, Commander Ward received a final transmission. The deep voice spoke again. Humanity has passed the first test. Ward frowned. Test. The voice replied calmly. Your species fights even when defeat is certain. You protect your world. You endure. Ward asked the question that had haunted him. What happens now? The answer was simple. Now. A massive Sentinel ship slowly turned toward the stars. You join the galaxy. For the first time in history, humanity was no longer alone. And somewhere across the universe, civilizations began preparing.